Check, check. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Christina Brill. I'm the exhibitions director and curator here at the Art Center. Natasha Dikareva has joined us for this lovely artist talk. And for those of you that don't know her, Natasha was born and raised in Kiev, Ukraine. And she received her BFA in graphics at Kiev State Academy of Art and Design. After immigrating to the United States, she received her MFA from the University of Minnesota in 2004. Sorry, I'm in the 2020s. Natasha's work has been featured in a number of publications, including 500 Prints on Clay, New Ceramics magazine, and she's also been awarded several prizes for her work, including the Grand Prize at the American Museum of Ceramic Art in 2012. She exhibits frequently, internationally and nationally, and her work is held in public and private collections, including Yixing Ceramics Museum and the Kiev Foundation. Yixing, yes. Yixing. Natasha currently splits her time between New Hampshire and Sarasota, and I have had the pleasure of working with Natasha on getting this show together for the past few months, which has just been a delight. And I am excited for her to share her concepts and processes with you here tonight. So if you can all please welcome Natasha with me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. So nice to see familiar and new faces.
And young faces as well.
And young faces is very young.
So Natasha, I thought that maybe we could start with something that is rooted in your identity, but also at the core of this exhibition. Can you share with us a little bit about your experience growing up in Ukraine, and also touch upon how and when art entered your life?
I prepared something really long and then I decided, maybe I should be just I grew up in a cloud of smoke of my bohemian parents, so I've been inhaling it, and with this inhalation I also inhaled, which I totally disliked, immensely I disliked the smoke. So I never smoke and I never do drugs, and call myself I'm drunk from life. So, and get my inspirations from life events. And my parents, as bohemian and self-absorbed as they were, they still paid attention to me, and then they took me to numerous museums and exhibitions. My mom, was taking me everywhere. She placed me when I was 4 to the ballet school because she thought that I'm not gracious enough and I don't have sense of rhythm, and she was a composer, so she would drag me to the opera and ballet, and so I was very much exposed to culture, and my dad was a poet, so up until 7 years old I used to live in Noms because Noms. He would make a drawing for me during the night, and then in the morning he would show it to me and he would say, "Oh, look what Gnome drew for you," and it was for a long time until they divorced, and then and Gnomes disappeared. But then to my life came my stepfather, who was is an amazing influence, and he still is. We do have shows together. He's a painter, and he is a surrealist painter, and he's an amazing person, human being, so he influenced my life as well. And I could say that I grew up in a very loving environment. My parents were sophisticated enough, they didn't quarrel, so it was very amicable, and my dad used to visit us. So I grew up was in this environment where my mom, who was a composer, would create songs with my dad, who was a poet, and then I was supported and taken to different art studios, and so as long as I remember myself, I've been always sketching, like on my mom's music sheets, on the wallpaper of our apartment, everywhere, so it was unavoidable that they would put me to the art studios, and later I was pretty independent, so I entered the art school. You have to take exams to enter the art school. The art school, which is after the normal school, you go for 4 hours, 3 times per week, and then you study paintings and drawings and art history, composition, sculpture, all different materials. And I think I'm floated away from your question. Since early childhood, I was an artist, and I was going to be a biochemist, I thought, because I really liked to mix different elements, like medicinal. That's all I could find in our home, like how do you call this, brilliant? There are people from I don't know. You remember how to?
Yeah.
The brilliant zelonka, that thing that I would mix with some purple thing.
To do the experiments with the different chemical mixtures.
Right, and then put it on the window and also grow some plants. So this connection with nature and chemistry. So I was thinking I'm going to be a biochemist, but then I've been visiting a different after school classes for it. Extracurricular activities, exactly. And then it was ballet, music. Music went first. After 2 years, my mom couldn't teach me, so she placed me with another teacher. She apparently wasn't very good, and then I had to quit. And then the ballet stayed the longest until I was 12, and then I went to the art school. So this is how I became an artist, pretty much. Then I went to college, and then to the university, and then here.
That's, a lot. And you're still a dancer and a poet.
Yes.
Through all of that.
Yes. Well, I'm poetic. I like to call myself a poetic surrealist, positive poetic surrealist. That's how I call myself.
So you mentioned in your biography a little bit about the academy that you went to for college, and that the narrow standard of Soviet realism inadvertently pushed you to develop your own symbolic language. Right. So I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit on how you navigated that rigid standard, and then outside of your parents, what inspired you to think outside the box?
So you go to college, 4 hours of painting, next 4 hours of drawing, composition, so very, very strict. You do what you have to do. You start with simple things. And I'm very grateful for that schooling because it gave me the skills that I have right now, so I don't have to reinvent the bicycle wheel, as we say. But at some point, and it's becoming kind of boring. I would have been kicked out from the school if they saw what I'm doing right now. So on the side, where nobody sees, you start to express yourself, because once you acquire the skills, and of course there's so much beauty everywhere. You see beauty in landscapes and still lifes. I used to put myself like a still life from fresh veggies, and you're hungry for that food and you're drooling, but you're painting because you have to finish. It's the best still life ever. When you're hungry and you really want to depict that tomato, that's the last tomato. So, and then you acquire the skills, and then you start to express something else. And we, most of the European artists are, because of the harsh reality of the everyday life, you create this world of escape. There's similarity when you look at the Eastern European art of this kind of fantastical, otherworldly. We don't want to depict that harsh, dark realism. We want something light and beautiful, like fairy tales. Yeah, exactly. So this is how it started, and but I'm very grateful for all that schooling that they gave me, and I had great teachers, amazing teachers. My drawing teacher, he on the first day of meeting with us, he said, "You'll just bring your sketchbook next time. Just bring sketchbook, nothing in it." So whoever brought the sketchbook, he would give an A. But then the next time we would meet, you have to have 7 to 10 sketches every time you bring it to the class. So he'll check your sketches. So I developed this habit of bringing sketchbook with me everywhere. So I have volumes of mine. This is so precious. Should be published after my death.
Or before.
Before.
So we'll do some questions at the end, but yeah, so you earned your bachelor's degree actually in graphic design.
Yes.
So how did you find ceramics, and how did you figure out that that was your medium?
In art studios, art school, art college, I had sculpture teachers. They were all hideous. Sorry. I had great teachers, but these teachers weren't so good. So I almost feel like this is my mission now, to give back, to teach good sculpture. So I didn't really strive being a sculptor. I've been always drawing, I've been always into printmaking, monotypes, graphic design, because it was a commercial graphic design that I finished. And at my first position, there was this little department where they were making souvenirs with like plates, some really kitschy roses on it. And I touched the clay there again, and that was it. I was hooked. I asked my boss, even though they would pay less, because I was in an engineer position. An engineer position is like 20 rubles more. I didn't care. I asked him to transfer me to being a laborer, so I could just touch clay. He was a mean person. He didn't do it. And I left work and I went to St. Petersburg, where I continued to work with clay. And then when I came back, my co-workers opened a cooperative. It was during the time of Perestroika, where we had our own gallery, and we just did our works. We produced what we want. We started traveling because all of the metal fence was up. I met some people from Holland. I started learning English, and I've been making enough money to give it to, everybody, and travel, buy chocolates, and go in taxis home. So that was a luxurious life. It was really, really nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of ceramic artists will say the second or third time they touch the clay and they're really into it, that's when it gets hooked.
Oh, yeah. I warn everybody. It's like, once you're in my class, this is the rest for you of your life. You will be dealing with it.
So like a lot of contemporary artists, you're heavily influenced by your location, your landscape, but also the socio-political environment around you.
Right.
So prior to this body of work, which is somewhat influenced by the happenings in Ukraine, were there any other social moments that really struck you and influenced your work in such an impactful way?
Yes. So I usually work in series, so whatever is happening in the world or with my own life, usually for a year. You know, I injured my back, and it was a series called Look What I Got Doctor, where you go to the doctor, like in your head. You unzip yourself, and then only beautiful things come out, like flowers and birds and fish. Yeah, you can take a look at my website to see them there. Because I looked through so many books where the body, because I like to go deep into the problem, not just you come to the doctor, oh, here's your pill, and then you will be healed. No, I want to heal myself. This is why I look through the books. So I went to the libraries, different places, looked through the books, and this is how the beauty came out. So it influenced my work, and I worked for a year. I was done. I'm done. I'm not healed, almost. Well, I mean, I'm better, I'm much better, but, you know, this is done. And then around about 2010, I felt like there's so many catastrophic events coming out, like happening in the world. So I felt like I want to climb into my own shell and just to pick out whether it's safe to come out. So this whole series, I call them shell dwellers. And then they evolved into, so first they were pale, and then with some inscriptions on their surfaces, like almost like it's graffito, where I was using stains to emphasize those drawings, like tattoos on their bodies. And then they started to have color, and then they started slowly coming out. So they become braver, but so I call them as if they were tuning into the essence of the sea, the shell. So their body would be out, but their head would be in. So they're not bombarded by the media, by all this, because I would imagine every time you turn on the radio, there's like blood coming out at you. I think it's the quest for media to make us all scared, to create this fear. So this is why they are still in the shell, listening to their own organisms and developing their own imagery, you know, staying in balance. And so then they evolved. I call them escapists, where they are women, mostly figures, taking baths and reading poetry, or they could hold the phone, and if they're reading poetry, it would be like haiku dreaming, it's called, and then she's falling asleep, and on the bathtub there is a depiction of some moon landscape, which is kind of similar to the China painting, and I've been using China painting for that. And then they evolved, and they started to run on the walls, and then there were men there also with some octopus, and so they evolved, and I had the whole series and the exhibition called Evolution of the Shell Dweller. Then the pandemic came, and it's all about uncertainty, because we were never that uncertain, and we're still uncertain. Like every day we're uncertain that everything is changing. You can't really plan, or if you're planning, then you're being prepared that something will change. So I had this series and another exhibition called Certain About Uncertainty. Then I moved to New Hampshire, and I started walking in the forest during the pandemic as well. We moved in 2020, and I started doing some breathing exercises and holding your breath, and to stay balanced and stay focused and stay rooted. And so the New Hampshire pieces is all about perceiving these upcoming challenges as the opportunities for spiritual growth. So there are tall trees, and then there are my forest dwellers. They're on top of these trees, and they're looking at the horizon. Have you ever seen this movie? There's this man, and it's like apocalyptic seen almost, and his wife is already passed and like many years ago. And he goes into the ocean and he just yells, "Bring it on!" It's like, not like that, but you know, you look at the horizon, you're kind of like, okay, we're ready. So these are, and then the war started, so it's completely shattered my world.
What was your first reaction when you heard about the invasion?
It's just first disbelief and shock and devastation, and I have relatives there, you know, like at first I was calling 5 times per day. I still speak with my cousin once a day. Still sometimes it's like I have to pinch myself. Is it really happening in the 21st century that so much cruelty, that as if somebody like opened the box of Pandora, so the evil is coming out? So I feel like I have to fill everything with light. Just light will kill the darkness. I'm not saying we can't have darkness. There's a little bit of darkness, but the balance is so.
So you and I spoke a little bit about this special moment that you have in the afternoon, and I was hoping you could share with our audience also how this golden hour is really this beautiful time of reflection for you, and how sort of this meditative moment reflects in your art practice.
Do you have your golden hour? As artists, we have different golden hours. Some like to work at night, some best in the morning. My best is the late afternoon, when all the hustle and bustle of life around you, because in the morning it's all it's like everything is flying, and somebody's like, we have one neighbor, even during the weekends, he's always doing something. There's always like one little leaf that he has to chase around. Or somebody's switching the windows or the roof. It's like, oh, people, when you finally, around 3 or 4 o'clock, they're all tired and they all go home. Oh, this is golden hour. This is finally when I don't have to struggle. Don't get me wrong, I still work. It's just like I imagine myself walking like this much in the snow when I work like this. You know, up to here. So difficult. So the golden hour is, and everything settles down. It's kind of this time when the animals start to come out as well. They're, because they feel it's safe finally, right? So I have this special relationship with these little birds and squirrels and rabbits, and we have raccoons, a family of raccoons. They always like there checking out on me. Okay, what are you making today? Let's see, my beautiful viewers. You can really tune into. I can. It's the best time for me to tune into the process of what I've been making. So calm, serene. What's your favorite? Morning? Morning.
I was always a late night person.
6 to 8.
Morning?
6 to 8 at night.
At night.
Nice.
Nice. Oh, I like to move furniture like around 10 p.m. My husband is not happy about it. It's like I feel so much energy. I worked. If he's not in town, then I'll be in my studio. But if he's in town, I call it feed your hungry wolf. You know, after dinner, I already wrapped everything. I don't want to go back and unwrap it. So I do some office work for, you know, submissions or anything else, statements. So, but, oh, how about we move this piece? He just loves it.
So let's talk a little bit about your technical process. I know we have a few ceramic people in the room,
Right.
but how does an idea come to life for you in these sculptures, especially some of these larger works?
So I'm a traditional in a way. I'm traditional. So I start with an idea in my head, then I have my sketches, sketch multiple ideas there first, and then I make a smaller version. It's called maquette, a smaller sculpture. So I know which way to build, because these are all built from the bottom up, even from parts. So this one has 3 parts, for example, and you have to wait until the first layer is settles. You can't just place at once a big amount. My students, they all know. And so, because you have to wait, it has to settle, you have to build it in the right direction. So I usually have my maquette, and then I have it in the, this we spoke about maquettes with Robin as well. And I have a couple of turning wheels. So my larger one on the turning wheel, for example, it's like this big, and my smaller one is on the turning wheel. So I'm turning this one and this one, I'm comparing the direction I'm moving with both of them. So I'm building it step by step. And yeah, this is how I build them.
So, I mean, something I think that really resonates with a lot of visitors as well as a lot of makers is the texture of your work.
Mm.
And especially, you know, this sort of beautiful rough texture that you're getting, enhancing it with the stains. Can you just maybe speak a little bit about how, especially in this body of work, those textures are really enhancing your conceptual elements? And are you obsessed with textures like I am?
Aren't we all? So the idea of the texturing pieces, this kind of raw, tough texture, which is emphasized with stains, and then I like to juxtapose different textures there. It's as if these parts are not necessarily made by human hands, but rather made by forces of nature, like it's been weathered by wind and fire and water. And in this particular body of work, there are also lots of holes you could see. So I see it as the sculptures being, or they represent the idea that whatever happens to them, they've been bombarded by either physical shelling, bombs, or propaganda. So there are these holes, but they also create these negative spaces where the light comes through. So there's also the negative contours, which are making the additional drawings. So they're all intertwined and working together.
The work is extremely powerful from a distance. When you walk into the gallery, it really hits you. But you're also providing the viewer with all these really detailed, intimate moments.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, like, what additional meaning are you trying to get in those little pieces? And then for the inquisitive viewer, you know, what is their sort of candy at the end of the road?
To make them more inquisitive, it's like to make them more curious, to bring them into the work, to see what else is there, because you know it's good to see it in a large scale and it's as a whole, but then also you come closer and you discover new layers, new meanings, new charged symbolism there. New information, so you could create also your own story, of course, as a viewer, and then tell me. because it might inspire me as well, because I like this interaction with the viewer. It's
Well, you mentioned symbols, and you know, all of this work, I think everyone can see, is filled with symbols and metaphor, which have really become part of your personal aesthetic in your work well before this body of work. So how has like folklore and mythology played such an important role in your artistic practice, but also in your worldview?
Well, I did read lots of mythology and fairy tales, guilty as charged, when I was a child, and now I make my own, but I perceive that we're all one. So all these charged symbolism, the all-seeing eye exists in so many different cultures, or an egg is a symbol of beginning, for example, or the architectural structures, the cloud, feathers, sun and ice, so many charged symbolism I like to use and incorporate. So as a viewer, you are invited into this myriad of metaphorical possibilities. I give you the tapestry, the fabric, and then you weave your own story. But this is the part of the conversation, and mythology is very important. Although when you read it as a child, it's a one story. When you reread it again, it's a completely other story. But we are all part of mythological creatures as well. You know, there are gods and goddesses among us. Seriously.
Indeed. And you know, one element I think that you've really taken off with, you even teach whole workshops on, is the hand. So I'm curious, is it the hand, as Aristotle would have said, as the tool of tools, or is it something else that you're trying to get at with the hand?
Well, it's a nice saying, I would say, tool of tools, because we do work with our hands and we do so many things. But also, hands are our tools of expression, and there are so many different, they call mudras, you probably heard. You know, if I place my hands like this in the praying position, you might read it as a gratitude and some kind of reverence and praying. And, you know, at the end of yoga, we did this, or if we did this, or, well, some other symbols that come to my mind. This is called giant mudra. There's a sculpture with that giant mudra over there, with the hand on her heart. So it helps you focus, it balances you. It's a mudra of wisdom and knowledge as well. The crying, yelling person, the piece called Protect Our Skies. The hands are expressing different emotion. So for me, it's an expressive tool. It also could be read as a power symbol, as our connection, because we're connecting with each other through hands. We're helping each other through hands. We're healing each other through hands. So hands have so many different meanings.
Something that I really thought was fascinating when you and I were speaking was Natasha described herself as a channel. And so if you could elaborate a little bit about that channeling and the intuition that you feel as a maker, and this influence on the greater purpose of your art.
She looks at me and it's like, I'm just going to do some woo-woo here. Yeah, now everybody close your eyes, we're going to channel. Actually, you know that before Renaissance, people, the creators were taking the inspiration from somebody who's called genius. So it was a separate being, and then you could blame genius if, like, you had, oh, you genius, you didn't give me the inspiration, or you, it's not you who is creating it, it's the genius who dictates you or does something for you, for us. And then during Renaissance, it's all like turned into us, and then creators became geniuses, as if like we are geniuses. I'm not a genius. This is what I mean. Like, I am just relaxed and being very intuitive. So when I work, when I start working, I fast. I'm just so fast, as if somebody's chasing me, because I wanna be in tune with this flow, and this is what I meant. I didn't really, the channel has this kind of a weird connotation. I'm just saying that I'm hello, Carla.
It's wonderful.
A vessel, you know, you are a vessel, and there is this energy that emanates through your hand, and you just have to be tuned in to feel it. And there's always this balance between, because you could be intuitive and still do something horrible. So you have to, I call it dive in. So when you're intuitive and then you get out from that state and you look with the critical point of view and you make all those formal adjustments, and then so it's balance in between those two states.
And you've mentioned that the process itself, the making, is your meditation.
Yeah, it's a cathartic experience for sure, because then the time stops or it flexes. You know, you can work for hours and you don't notice the time or anything else. You're just so in tune with the material. And the clay people, we know it's so something so magical about clay, mud people. Yeah.
Well, that element of the meditation, I mean, I think is particularly important for this body of work, right? Because you're healing yourself through this creation, right?
Yeah, well, even though I might not recognize it at the moment, when I'm coming out of the creative process, then I probably realize that this was a cathartic experience for me. Yeah.
So you teach workshops all over the world. What do you learn most from your students, and why is teaching so important to your practice?
I love teaching. Well, as I mentioned before, I feel it's my mission now, in a way, because I didn't have a good experience growing up, and I have to pass what I know. But it's not only teaching for teaching's sake, it's coming out of my bubble, because I work by myself and I don't know what's going on around. You know, I could stay in my studio forever and not to communicate, not to be able to communicate with the outside world. So, meet my tribe and share the ideas and develop them and learn from them as well, because we are all learning from each other. If you don't learn something new every day, it's like not a good day.
Well, talking about finding your tribe, I mean, you are very well traveled. And the landscape, obviously, where you're living plays a significant role in your artwork. Is there anywhere in particular that you're hoping to go and hoping to influence your work?
Yes, there are a couple of places which are on my bucket list. It's Japan
Me too.
and Ireland. Yeah. And Iceland. Yeah, these northern countries. I've been to Denmark, but I think Iceland is something incredible. Ireland, Iceland, and Japan. I think if I'll go there, my work might change dramatically. I should research the residency, if you know of any residency.
Well, there's a bunch in Japan.
Yeah. It's their firings and their aesthetics are so different.
So this body of work, Through Sorrow into Light, is really all about finding compassion and overcoming tragedy. You describe yourself as an eternal optimist, which I applaud you for. Where does this optimism come from, and how, what advice would you give me as a pessimist to get through the day?
Well, optimism is not necessarily that you don't see the reality as it is. There's still sorrow and sadness. It's just that you see this light at the end of the tunnel. So to the pessimists, I would suggest enjoying little moments, every little moment, like be very grateful and be compassionate to yourself. Like, don't blame yourself for something that is not up to you to happen. I've been always an optimist, I think. I see these obstacles as opportunities to grow, and I'm curious. Okay, what's next when it's not so well? Something's happening that is not going well. So what will it go to? So I'm optimistic that eventually, as a humanity, because we're one, and I'm believing in the goodness of human beings everywhere, so the kindness prevail. We will win. I'm very optimistic about it. It's
wonderful. Yeah, we need some more people in the world like you, I think.
That's for sure.
Before we open it up to questions, because I know there are a lot, what is your final thought on Through Sorrow into Light? What do you hope our viewers take away from this exhibition?
The optimism. That they will be informed. They will be curious to find out what's going on in Ukraine. For those who don't know, that they might be willing to help people there. We still need help. There's still lots of fundraisers. So that you write to your Congress people to help us. Unfortunately, this how to place it? This evil has to be destroyed. So there's no other way. So these things, I hope that the viewer will take wisdom.
Well, I think it's really important work that you're showing us, and so powerful, not only in the concept, but just even sculpturally. So it's really beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Any questions from the audience?
See it as a resilience. It's a resistance, but it's resilience.
Right.
And Ukrainian people. I
Yes.
think that they had forever. It's a generational thing that's never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get rid of it no matter what's happened.
Yes, thank you. It's very long.
When you're doing your maquettes and you start seeing them as spaces, do you take into consideration of the positive and negative space?
So for the maquettes, because they're smaller, the positive and negative spaces, the main holes will be there, but the smaller ones probably won't. Plus, the changes will come. Apparently, sometimes the hand becomes in a different gesture, or the upper part is created differently. So many things could go. You have to go with the flow, right? Remember, listen to the clay. What does it want from you today? It whispers, and it's like, oh, okay. Do not fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you do something gestural like this, that kind of defies gravity,
Right.
do you get concerned about how well that will hold up in a kiln?
I get concerned. Then I call my husband and I say, okay, what do you think? And then, we consult, because he's a scientist, and I'm an artist, and I'm a little bit of an engineer, but you have to become one.
Right.
But I do have a good advisor, I should say.
So you're an excellent engineer. I mean, these pieces
Yeah,
fit
this is
perfectly.
a lot.
So it comes with experience, yes.
So I have a question about the choice of color, because it just really helps tell the story you're trying to tell. But do you usually choose like your color palette when you're having a vision for what the theme is going to be, or does that evolve with each piece?
Well, the latest series is sorrow. Is the blue color is for sorrow. Before, my colors were different. When I was creating the kind of otherworldly creatures, there was more lighter, like a sky blue, or more greener when I was creating my forest dwellers. So it always applies to the concept. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's not a question actually, but I just wanted to share my thoughts that came to my mind. Because right now you told us about the holes that they depict, holes after bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't know the story behind the sculptures when I first saw the exhibition, which is really absolutely exceptional and beautiful. But what came to my mind was when I read the Through Sorrow into Light title, was like, I felt that maybe it was a kind of a work of meditation when we are down and we live in kind of a dark moment of our lives, like in a dark room. Mm-hmm. So if you want to change it, we need to open the window to let the light in, and then we can see actually what is wrong and what we can work on. Mm-hmm. So, I just wanted to share what I saw when and it also can relate to your optimism as well, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need the light. We need to fill it with light. Like, yes. Bring lots of candles and much more powerful things. Mm.
Comment and a question.
Yeah.
One is, I'm here because in my own work, I have not encountered many people who are living the realities of universal consciousness, and that is actually a greatest source of optimism. So I'm going to salute you for that. And the question is, in the curation of your exhibits, are you intentionally working with shadow as another sculptural element? Because I know these pedestal pieces were placed differently when I first saw the exhibit.
Yes.
But what has been created by how they're set up now is a whole other experience in and of itself. So I just wanted to know if that was intentional or guided or.
Well, I've been happy enough to work with Christina. She lets me do whatever I want. This is like the best. Almost, yeah. Well, almost. Pretty much. She's like amazing. The setup today is organized in a way so it can fit the public. There were two sculptures in the middle. One is over there was the blue tears, and one is right next to you. Yeah. And the shadows are they are part of the sculptures as well. They're so interesting sometimes. You know, I look in my studio, the shadows are creating their own sculptures. They have their own life, depending on the time of the day, when the sun is low. Yeah.
So that leads me to my query, which is about shadows. And do you think of these works as interior, exterior pieces, or are they all meant for interior? Therefore, with the goal of having this outside.
Outside would be great. Yeah, I love them to have outside. The large pieces, absolutely. It would be fantastic to have them. So the smaller ones, they're more intricate. They probably in this climate would be overgrown by the jungle.
But the finish on them would accommodate an exterior application.
It would, even if they start to change, which I do have sculptures being outside in Minnesota and New Hampshire, and because I created my own clay, they can withhold the temperature. And then they started to grow some moss on them, and it's so beautiful.
So did you use glazes on those pieces, or did you go to automotive type paints, or did you just use?
The ones which are living outside, some of them have some glazes, and most of them have just stains. So, thank you.
Well, I have a question actually about the eyes.
Okay.
And are the eyes looking into themselves? Are they looking back out at us? Are they looking at you?
Which ones?
Well, all of them. Is there a subject to the gaze, I guess?
Yeah, depending on the sculpture, you know. Before my sculptures, they were very serene before the war. And they always look as if they look inside themselves. Like this very meditative Buddha's look. You know, when you half close your eyes like this. Well, this one definitely looks at you because it asks you to wake up and go home. It's called Wake Up and Go Home. And some of them are covered with shadows. You see like this, the balance, the quest for balance with multiple holes. She is definitely gazing at the viewer, but through that shadow. So she's protected. Yeah, it depends. And then all-seeing eye, it sees everything. It looks multiple directions. It goes.
4D.
Yeah. Well, you know, the eyes are the continuation of our brain. If you take a look at if you go to the doctor, to the eye doctor, they have this two balls, and there's a brain and there are nerves, and then there are two balls. Can you imagine? And it's so interesting because I always think about it. If we strip away the skin, so there are just two balls. They don't express anything. It's all about our muscles and how we're mimicking them. Just the eyes. You could, you know, these women who are wearing, what is it called? Yeah, veils. They have to express themselves only with eyes, nothing else there. So they could be like all these different things. Yeah. Yeah.
This is the expression of the eyes for the dance, for instance. Like,
Yeah.
This work feels very spiritual to me. And do you have a particular spiritual practice that you follow? Do you do anything meditative before you start working? And is that part of the process?
I meditate. It's, imagine, your mom would put you in the corner, in the cross-legged position, and ask you to close your eyes and think of the cloud. How long can you stay like this?
We do that.
Oh, good. Oh, so you know it's meditation.
That's great.
Yeah. I do not belong to any particular group. Have you heard about the Rosencrucians?
No.
Well, they were long time ago. I don't remember when they started. So anyway, they're the ones who are in the quest for not, you don't have to belong to somewhere, not Catholicism, Buddhism, or anything. We're all one. We all have very similar ideas and quests to grow spiritually. And he's bored. So yeah, I'm probably like them. You could look them up. Do you practice something?
I do. I'm sort of a Catholic Buddhist.
Oh, okay.
Meditate for about an hour a day.
An hour? That's very good. Yeah. Well, if the closest would be Buddhism, probably, to me.
So it speaks to that.
But I also grew up with I grew up as a pioneer. It's a Marxism religion, you know, before the Soviet Union. But culturally, we are surrounded by the Christian Orthodox churches. And it's all intertwined, I think.
It is. I agree.
Yeah, Dave, talk about how your focus changes when you go to Florida and New Hampshire. I mean, those are drastically different environments. So, what happens to you with your work once you go there and come back?
You know, I kill my husband on the way, both ways, because the transition is very difficult. No, I don't. I have certain obligations. Even though we're not planning anything, I do plan things. So I'm teaching, for example, in California in May. Then I'm coming back. I have my solo show. So it's all, because it's all structured, it doesn't matter where you are. I'm always working, so I wrap up here, and then I start my workshops, then I come back to New Hampshire and I open my studio there, then I wrap up over there, I have my solo show, then I come back here, and this is just a continuous process. So in terms of whether the work, it might change, because you never know what might happen on the way. Maybe I'll meet somebody spiritual, and then they will tell me something that will inspire me forever, and or there will be an interesting animal in the forest, and it will inspire me to make an interesting work.
So the environment itself doesn't change anything for you. It's just you being in your space, your golden hour.
I believe that we take ourselves everywhere we go. You have to enjoy what the environment offers you. Here we have the ocean. Isn't it amazing? And we have this jungle and all these smells and the birds and very, very interesting animals. And then when I go to New Hampshire, I have my woods there. And it's just undescribable. It's so beautiful. And I also have my garden there. So I spent like 3 hours in the morning, early morning. I'm not as you know, I'm not a studio person in the morning. So I go in the woods and I meditate and I take care of my veggie garden, and then I go to my studio. And this is a certain routine, and something in between comes in, and this is how the life goes. And here it's the ocean and some other things as well.
So is your next, do you already work on your next project?
I always work.
Yes,
So
you mentioned that you already work. more, so I was wondering, what's the next?
So I just finished a large piece. It's a torso. It's a huge cloud. Ta-da! Like this. It's a life size. Did it show you the maquette? No. You can follow me on Instagram, so you'll be able to see my latest. And I am going to experiment with sheets of glass now, because my glass blower, the studio that we worked in here is not available anymore. So I'm going to try some other techniques. And I've tried some techniques where you would use the sheets of glass. It's a very complicated, I'm not going to bore you with it, but the idea is that through those holes, you've seen one, the glass melts slightly, but not totally, and then there are like bubbles coming out. So this is my next quest.
What is the concept? Like, what it would be about?
It will be the same, unfortunately, because the war is not over yet. I can't wait until it will be over, so I can come back to my otherworldly creatures and put it aside, dig the hole in the ground and bury them there.
So is it because you're not concentrating on anything else right now?
No, it's because what I am sensing.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Since I'm a vessel, this is what I do, this is what's happening in the world. Let's hope nothing more serious happens. But, yeah, we're being hopeful. Ask me something hopeful. Something nice.
Judy had a question.
Yeah,
for
Judy.
It's similar questions about the evolution of your topic.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't end a topic when you have a show. It's a body of work, and then it ends, and then you move on. It's more that you are in this expression now until you feel like you've worn it out.
Yes.
She's the channel.
You've worn it out as opposed to the war ends, where you've said what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm done.
Yeah.
When you work in series, you work, you just like, you have to express yourself, it pours out of you. You can't stop. And then at some point it's like, okay, I don't have any more words for it. No, that's it, I'm done. It's like,
and then you see a turtle cross the road, and all of a sudden you're in New Hampshire and moss and turtles or something.
I don't really know how it happens, because sometimes it happens on the subconscious level. I'm not an art historian. I can only explain what I know is happening with me. It's up to the art historians to later.
They're wrong.
Yes. And I've been told lately that I've been influenced by somebody that I don't know.
Not by me.
No.
Who is that?
Oh, I don't want to say. But it was quite an experience when my friend who took a tour, guided by the art historian and a writer, she invited me to be here and meet with the group, and I did. And then they were telling me that oh, he's so great, and he said so many lovely things about your work, and then that you've been influenced by such and such and so, and I'm like, and I've never heard of those people. So I asked, how is it possible that I've been influenced by somebody, the work of whom I've never seen before? And they explained how.
Is that channeling?
I can't repeat it. I'm not that articulate to repeat it. It is something there, but I haven't seen it there. Okay, well, you know better. Talking about art historians, you know, they know better.
And there's nothing new under the sun. It's good, it's all been done anyway.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think that any time you do it, it's unique because it's like our print. It's that unique quality. If it flows through you, it's something different.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Does anyone have any other questions for Natasha?
Your last chance.